Hi, thanks for taking the time to watch this video about Genie's Biomerge software. This video will take you through the installation, configuration and usage of Biomerge. Regardless of how you receive your media, it will have a folder called CD, and in that folder there'll be another folder called Auto Run, and we run the Auto Run application. This is the correct way to install Biomerge. Installing it any other way, you run the risk of not installing all of the requisite programs that Biomerge relies on. So we'll start at the top with Install Server. Straight away we get a message telling us that there's a requirement that's missing. That requirement is SQL Server. We'll select Install. UAC pop up. Yes. Installation begins. Depending on the specification of your system, will depend how long it takes for SQL Server to install. So while that's installing, let's take a look at what's required for a Biomerge install. So we have our Net2 ACU, Verdi terminal, power supply for the Verdi terminal, network switch, network cables, and a PC running server, client and Net2, and an enrollment reader. The enrollment reader is essential. Without the enrollment reader, there's no way of sending fingerprint information to the terminal. So there is no other method of enrolling other than the enrollment reader. We'll also see here that we have a Wigan connection between the Verdi terminal and the Net2 controller. The network connection for the Verdi terminal is what's used to send the fingerprint information from the Biomerge server to the terminal. Wigan is then used just like it would be with a prox reader or a keypad to send the token information to the Net2 controller. So the Wigan connection is essential. So in terms of this connection, the Verdi terminal is behaving just like a card reader or a keypad. It's also recommended that that 12-volt power supply is used to power the Verdi terminal. They all come with one when they're supplied. It's not recommended that the 12-volt output on the reader terminals on the ACU is used. Depending on what type of terminal you're using, whether it's an AC2000 or an AC5000, will depend on your options for configuring the terminal. The terminals require 4 things to be configured on them to function correctly with Net2 and with Biomerge. They need an IP address, that can be static or dynamic. They need an ID, they need to know what the server IP address is, and they also need their Wigan output configuring and enabling. So they have a standard Wigan output of 26-bit or 34-bit. 26-bit is absolutely fine to use with the Net2 ACU. So an AC2000, that would be enabled using an app called USB+, and with the AC5000, that can be configured with its on-screen menu, as can its IP address, its server IP, and its ID. There's also a useful tool that's included with your install media called Terminal Finder. Terminal Finder searches your network and finds your Verdi terminals, and it allows you to configure the IP address of the terminal, the ID, and the server IP. So let's just take a look at that now. Hit search, it finds our AC5000. Let's take a look at that. So terminal ID is 1, that's fine. IP address is fine, it's all in range. Server IP I think is incorrect. So let's check the IP address of our server. Yep, that's wrong. So we need to change that here. So 1, 2, 3. The default password is 0842650. It's worth noting at this point that that is a default password, and the recommendation is that password is changed or this option here, lock and configuration, is enabled. If you enable lock and configuration, then Terminal Finder is no longer able to change any of the settings that you see here. They can only be changed, for example, on an AC2000 using the USB Plus app, and with an AC5000 they can only be configured through its GUI. That would remain the case until the factory default is done on them. So once again, that password, the default password, is 0842650, and we're going to apply that. Verdi terminals restarted. Reconnecting to the network. We'll do another search. And we can see here our server IP has changed to 0123. So that's great. Let's close that. And we'll just wait for the SQL Server installation to complete. Okay, so SQL Server installed. Now the Biomerge server program is going to install. UAC prompt, click yes. And then finish. Biomerge consists of two programs. It consists of a server program and a client program. So a server takes control of the terminals, the Verdi terminals, sending information to them, users, updates, etc. A client is used to enroll the biometric credentials. The server can absolutely live on a different system to client, but they can also coexist on the same system. So it's fine to install them on one PC. And we'll get another UAC prompt. Click yes. And we'll finish. It's also at this point, it's worth noting that you need to install the USB drivers if you haven't already for the enrollment reader. The enrollment reader, again, as mentioned, is a requisite. So we've now installed the Biomerge programs and we've got SQL installed. Now let's create some shortcuts on the desktop for the Biomerge programs. So they'll be located in program files. Let's create a shortcut for server. And we'll create a shortcut for client. Now let's start off by executing server for the first time. Straight away we're prompted for a license. Server and client, if they're installed on a single PC, then they'll share a license. If, however, you are installing client on a separate PC, then a license will also be required for that system. For pricing, please contact your distributor. Note here, you have an installation ID. We need that at Genie. That is what we use to generate your license key. So I've already generated myself a license key here. Paste that in, save my license. So now what's going to happen is Biomerge server is going to try and run for the first time. You'll see here, this icon is orange. So if you Biomerge icons, server or client orange, then it means that they're not connected yet and they're not fully functioning. Okay, so it's totally normal to get this message the first time you run Biomerge. What we need to do is we need to edit our Net2 settings. So username, system engineer, now password. This setting can stay exactly as it is. And backup schedule. So that's the time of day that Biomerge will back up its database. So let's set that for midday on this system. We're going to OK that. Biomerge is now going to attempt to connect to the Net2 database. Okay, so that's successfully connected. Now we OK that message and then restart the server. And we're connected. So what we can see now is that we have an unknown terminal connecting to the server. That's a terminal that we connected earlier. If you're familiar with Verdi's proprietary software platform, Unis, you'll know that in there you tell the server what IDs to expect. It's the only real difference between Unis and Biomerge is that you don't tell Biomerge, the terminal will just appear. So we double click and we give the terminal a name. Let's call it Office Door. Capacity, so it's 15,000 templates. Note this option here, Send All Users. If this was an existing system, then we'd select Send All Users. What that would do is all the users that were in the system already would then be assigned to that terminal and automatically sent out to it. This is a brand new installation, so there's no user information, so we don't need to tick that option. Okay, so we now have our terminal connected to Biomerge. We'll just run through a couple of these buttons on the right hand side here. Resend all users. There's an option here, delete all users. So if you were to delete all users, you can then manually resend all users to the terminal. List users, that lists the users that are assigned to the terminal. Upload file. The AC5000 allows you to send customized background files and images, so that's what that would be used for. Firmware is to upgrade the firmware on the terminals. Database backup allows a manual backup of the database. Edit settings, there are our settings that we were looking at earlier, our Net2 settings. License key is the license key. View events are some events that are written into the database. Remote help launches Genie accesses TeamViewer application, and hide hides the program. So we can actually close this window. It doesn't close Biomerge server, it just minimizes it down to the system tray. So now we'll execute client. So we weren't prompted for any settings for client because client and server are sharing information, sharing configuration information. So let's enroll a user. Okay. Before we enroll the user, there's a little bit of configuration to just look at on the door, on the Net2 ACU. So, you see here, reader type is set to Wigan reader. Token data format is Wigan 26-bit. That's the standard Wigan 26-bit format that's built into Net2. And reader operating mode is token only. It's worth noting that when you're using Wigan 26-bit, or the standard Wigan 26-bit format, the maximum token number that you can set for use with a Verdi terminal is 65535. So the maximum token number is 65535. If you require larger token numbers, then the recommendation is to configure a custom Wigan format. So for example, to use larger numbers within a 26-bit range, you create a custom 26-bit format. That would be fine. You can still use the standard 26-bit output with the Verdi terminals. If you need to go over over that token size, then 34-bit is available. There's also a 34-bit standard 34-bit output available with the Verdi terminals. Okay, so that's the door configuration. In terms of the versions of Net2 that are supported, there is support for version 5 and up. So let's add a user. So let's click users, new user, first name, Genie, Biomerge. Okay, there are a few things here that you have to fill out in order for the Biomerge enrollment window to pop up on the screen. So the user has to have a surname. They also have to have an access level. And when we create our token, we also need to select fingerprint verification card. So again, the maximum token number is 65535 when using the standard 26-bit format. One way to keep on top of the token numbers that are used is to use auto pin, so 1502, so 1502, and then token type, fingerprint verification, add user. Our enrollment client pops up on the screen. On the left-hand side here, we select the terminal that we want to send the information to. If there's multiple terminals, there's a select all option here. This option here, admin. If you're not familiar with the Verdi terminals, then it's worth noting that you must assign an admin to them. By default, there is no admin. Without an admin added or enrolled or against a terminal, then the menus are all open. So, for example, you can enter the menus on an AC5000, and you can change the IP address. You could enroll your fingerprint against an existing user and gain access to the system. By ticking the admin option, that essentially locks the menu. So you can still access the menu, but you will be prompted for your admin ID, which is actually your token number. And then once you've entered that, you'll be then prompted for your fingerprint. So it's essential and highly recommended that an admin at least one user on the system is an admin on the terminal. So authentication type here on the right, we have fingerprint. If we select the drop down, you see there's multiple options. Depending on the terminal you're using will depend on which ones are applicable. For example, PIN only wouldn't be applicable to an AC2000 because it doesn't have a keypad. You're also able here to enroll cards. The Verdi enrollment reader is also a card reader. Click enroll. Okay, so we have a message here saying that Biomerge 2 is unable to open the desktop reader. So let's take a look at our drivers and see what's going on. So we can see here the driver is not installed correctly. I will update the driver. We'll see here, we check, yeah, that looks like the location for the drivers. Next. Now our drivers are installed correctly, we'll be able to complete the fingerprint enrollment. So let's select enroll again. And we have our enrollment window. Okay, so the enrollment reader now is flashing, the sensor's flashing, so I'll put my fingerprint on once, I'll lift it off, back on again, select next and finish. Now that information has been sent to the terminal. Okay, let's close this and have a look at our Net2 events window. I'll present my finger to the AC5000 and you can see successfully granted access. Okay, so that is installation, configuration and use of of Biomerge. For further information, please have a look at the documentation provided. Contains the user manual, and again, if you've watched the video, you've been through the manual. At the back of the manual is a frequently asked questions / troubleshooting section. So if things aren't working correctly, if clients not popping up for example, then please have a look at the troubleshooting section in there, and you'll find in there a list of things to check. If all else fails though, then please feel free to contact technical support at Genie Access. Thank you, and thanks for watching.